I destroyed production database on first day of a job. Today was my first day on the job as a junior software developer and was my first non-internship position after university. Unfortunately, I screwed up badly. I was basically given a document detailing how to set up my local development environment, which involves run a small script to create my own personal DB instance from some test data. After running the command, I was supposed to copy the database URL, password, username outputted by the command and configure my dev environment to point to that database. Unfortunately, instead of copying the values outputted by the tool, I instead for whatever reason used the values the document had. Unfortunately, apparently those values were actually for the production database. Why they are documented in the dev setup guide, I have no idea. Then from my understanding, that the tests had fake data and clear existing data between test runs, which basically cleared all the data from the production database. Honestly, I had no idea what I did, and it wasn't about 30 or so minutes after did someone actually figure out what I did. While what I had done was sinking in, the CTO told me to leave and never come back. He also informed me that apparently legal would need to get involved due to severity of the data loss. I basically offered and pleaded to let me help in some way to redeem myself, and I was told that I completely messed everything up. So I left. I kept an eye on Slack, and from what I can tell, the backups were not restoring, and it seemed like the entire dev team was on full-on panic mode. I sent a Slack message to our CTO explaining my screw up, only to have my Slack account immediately disabled not long after sending the message. I haven't heard from hours or anything, and I'm panicking to high heavens. I just moved across the country for this job. Is there anything I can even remotely do to redeem myself in this situation? Can I possibly be sued for this? Should I contact ours directly? I'm really confused and terrified. Edit. Just to make it even more embarrassing, I just realized that I took the laptop I was issued home with me. I have no idea why I did this at all. Edit 2. I just woke up after deciding to drown my sorrows, and I'm shocked by the number of responses, well wishes and other things. Will do my best to sort through everything. The biggest WTF here is, why did a junior dev have full access to the production database on his first day? The second biggest is, why don't they just have full backups? The third is, why would a script that blows away the entire database be defaulted to production with no access protection? You made a small mistake. They made a big one. Don't feel bad. Obviously, small attention to detail is important, but it's your first day and they messed up big time. And legal? Lol. They gave you a loaded gun with a hair trigger and expected you not to pop someone. Don't worry about it. The third is, why would a script that blows away the entire database be defaulted to production with no access protection? Sorry, maybe I poorly explained. The code doesn't default to production. Basically, I had to run a little Python script that seems to provision me an instance of PostgreSQL, I'm assuming on some virtual machine. While that tool was fine, and it did output me a URL and credentials. However, instead of using those values, I stupidly used the example values the setup document, which apparently point to production, when editing the config file for the application I would be working on. Aren't stupid for using values in your setup guide, they are ridiculously stupid for putting that information where they did. This was a disaster waiting to happen. Sorry it happened to you, but trust me, I've messed up big time, by accident, and companies have never tried to come after me for an honest mistake, nor have I been fired over it. CTO told the one and only guy he can count on never doing a mistake like this again, to never come back. I don't think they have learned much. Don't think the boss is gonna take the fall, do you? He's gonna pin it on the new guy to secure his own continued employment. That's exactly what's going on here. And the empty legal threat is just to scare off the new guy enough that he'll keep his mouth shut. I hear who accidentally nooked GitLab.com's database earlier this year. Fortunately, we did have a backup, though it was 6 hours old at that point. This is not your fault. Yes, you did use the wrong credentials and ended up removing the database, but there are so many red flags from the company side of things, such as sharing production credentials in an onboarding document. Apparently having a super user in said onboarding document instead of a read-only user. You really don't need write access to ClonaDB. Setting up development environments based directly on the production database instead of using a backup for this. Removing the need for the above. CTO being stupid. He should know everybody makes mistakes, especially juniors. Instead of making sure you never make the mistake again, he decides to throw you out. The tools used in the process make no attempt to check if they are operating on the right thing. Nobody apparently sat down with you on your first day to guide you through the process, or at least offer feedback. Instead they threw you into the depths of hell. Their backups aren't working, meaning they weren't tested. Same problem we ran into with GitLab, at least that's working now. Legal wise I don't think you have that much to worry about, but I'm not a lawyer. If you have the money for it, I'd contact a lawyer to go through your contract just in case it mentions something about this, but otherwise I'd just wait it out. I doubt a case like this would stand a chance in court if it ever gets there. My advice is, document whatever happened somewhere. Document any response they send you. For instance, export the emails somewhere. If they threaten you, hire a lawyer or find some free advice line. We have these in the Netherlands for basic advice, but this may differ from country to country. Don't blame yourself. This could have happened to anybody. You were just the first one. Don't pay any damage fees they might demand, unless your employment contract states you are required to do so. Man, I kept neurotically asking my manager, this isn't production right, and he kept saying, if you have write access to prod, somebody else messed up. This company was a ticking time bomb. Sequential reads from a SSD should be able to restore everything in no time, unless they are stupid, which it sounds like they were. Honestly, drop it from your resume. Start applying and sure petition for unemployment. Also, don't talk to their goddamn HR department. If they're threatening legal action, get yourself a lawyer. Not that you'll be liable, but you don't want to say anything they can get you for later. Old and pretty technologically illiterate. I understand about 20% of what you guys are talking about here. But I do understand screwing something up when you are new at a job and feeling just awful about it. When I was in my 20s, first time out in the field, I fried a very expensive piece of equipment because the power cables were color coded badly. Luckily my boss was cool. He and the rest of the guys joked around, and for a couple days I had a little nickname going. But he put me right back out there. To this day, I watch out for the new guys until they get their feet under them and just assume they could accidentally screw up. It happens. I love the way you guys are dealing with this. I hope when people at this business calm down, they have the class to apologize to him and acknowledge they messed up just as badly as he did. And job after 3 weeks of washing dishes and hating it was at Petco. One day not long after I started, the power went out and they told me to go into the filter room and turn on the generator. I went in there and it was pitch black. I felt myself knock something over and heard a splash, but it took a few minutes to see what it was. Once I got the generator running, I realized to my horror I'd knocked an open bottle of bleach into the filtration system. A system which was set up in such a way that it filtered both the fresh and salt water tanks. I slowly walked out of the filter room, my heart in my throat, and was horrified to see the water in every single one of the 200 tanks was a sickly yellow color. The saltwater tanks were bubbling and frothing over, and hundreds of fish were dying. In tears I ran into the office screaming for help. When the manager saw what happened, she became furious. I was told to go home. When I got home I must have cried for hours. I felt so bad. I blamed myself for it, and what's worse was the manager didn't believe I hadn't done it on purpose until one of the people I worked with owned up to it after seeing how terrible I felt. He had used the bleach to clean the filter room and had left it sitting on the corner of the open filter without the cap on. I kept my job, but I kept looking for something new, and as soon as I found a position somewhere else I left there without looking back. Petco treats its animals terribly. I know that's unrelated to what I wrote, but it was definitely a factor in my leaving. I've never destroyed a production database, but I have deleted production data. Then I sheepishly went hat in hand to the DBA/system admin and admitted my mistake. Then about 30 minutes later the data was restored from backup. Share your story in comments and subscribe.